So just to introduce Graeme, he's MD of Innocent and has been since May 2019, having filled the role of commercial director for a number of years before that. Prior to Innocent, Graeme worked with Coca-Cola Enterprise, has worked within the hospitality sector with Whitbread, and also in consumer electronics, both with Sony and Dixon Stores. So quite a career there, and some incredible experiences along the way. I'm delighted to welcome and hand over to Graeme Farrington.
Thank you very much. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today. For those that maybe can notice the spelling of my name, you'll notice that I've got some Scottish heritage in my family. My mum's from Scotland and my dad's from England, and therefore we've got that lovely, healthy rivalry in the family at all times. I would have loved to have been with you in person today, but unfortunately these are the times we are in. So I'm absolutely delighted to be here. And the other thing is I've already had some comments on the selection of drinks I put in the background. The feedback I did get from my own team before this was that my background looked rather dull. So there was some feedback on my home decor. So hopefully I've brightened that up a little for you. And I want to share a little bit about Innocent, our journey, and also what that means as a B Corp. So hopefully this will build on Liz's introduction for me there. So yeah, so Innocent as a B Corp, something we're really proud of. I'm going to split the presentation to sort of two halves, a bit of Innocent, the background of how we started and where we've come from and to, and then a bit about B Corp and what that means for us, and how we are using it to continue to evolve and grow our business. So first of all, Innocent, we started out in 1999, so just over 20 years ago, definitely as the little guy. So there were three friends from university, Adam, John, and Rich, who wanted to go into business together and start their own business. And they had a couple of ideas that they wanted to test. The first idea they actually had, that they will talk you through, was the idea for an electric bath. So you put the water in and you can heat it by electric rather than the hot water. On reflection, they looked at it and said that mixing water and electricity possibly wasn't the best idea that they had come up with. So they put that to one side. But the other idea they had was around smoothies. And this was born out of, three young guys, graduated from university, wanted to make sure they could find an easy way to put some good stuff inside of them while they lived their social lives and their work lives. So they created the concept of some smoothies. And they wanted to test this. They went to a festival, as Liz said at the start, and they gave the smoothies away at the festival. And what they asked in return was that people voted with their empty bottles. And the question they asked is, should we give up our jobs and start making smoothies? And if you think that's the case, then we'd like to put them in this dustbin marked yes. And if you think we shouldn't bother and we should stay in our current jobs, please put them in the bin marked no. And of course, what happened at the end of that day was the yes bin was overflowing. People loved them, and the no bin was almost empty. Subsequently, when I've heard the founders present a little bit more on this topic, they said it was their parents that were there throwing empties into the no bin. They were definitely against their idea of giving up a security of a job to start their own business. But they made the decision to go into work the following Monday, resign, and start their business. As scary and as daunting and as exciting as that is. So that's the start point for there. And what they did was they had a big dream. The Earth's favourite little healthy food and drinks company. It sounds very grand when you say it, but each word was chosen for deliberate effect, almost. So the Earth, I guess, talked to not restricting yourself to a particular region or territory as you're looking at where you might go in the future, even if it's 100 years away. Favourite has got a double meaning almost. So favourite is about being loved as a brand by drinkers and consumers, but also about being big and growing and having some scale behind it. And then the word little comes in. So that seems to contradict what I've just said there, but little is about a mindset. about staying entrepreneurial, about staying close to the roots that you had when you very first started this company, and all the things you had to do. Healthy food and drinks is a nod to the fact that we celebrate fruit primarily and veg in all that we do. At the moment, we're focused on drinks. We have done some food in the past, and who knows again in the future, who knows, but right now drinks is exciting enough for us. So that statement, which seems quite broad and quite grand at the start, was chosen very carefully. And it went along with a purpose. And that purpose was to make natural, delicious food and drink that helps people and the planet and helps people to live well and die old. And we have this on the wall of our office, and we show it to people. And sometimes people are surprised by die old being in your brand purpose or your company purpose. But ultimately, it's about taking nature, taking fruit and veg, turning it into something that's really tasty and nutritious, and helping people get vitamins, 1 of their 5 a day, whatever it might be that they may be missing in their day-to-day hectic lives. So the clear purpose was there. And against that backdrop, we also have a set of values that we use to guide us in our day-to-day. And these values are not something that sit on a website somewhere or something that sits on the wall of the office and nobody ever talks about. These are how we interact with each other in the business, how we praise one another, how we may challenge one another at times. And there's something that we talk about regularly, so they live and breathe, and we recruit people aligned to these values as well. My personal favourite of these is the first one, which is natural, and we talk about be yourself, be your authentic self. Don't try and be something else or copy someone else. Be you and be the best version of it that you can be. And I really like that, and that brings diversity into the teams. We get great differentiated thinking, and it's quite an inclusive value as well. So I really love that pillar. These values drive us. And where it ends up is if you put those purpose, vision, and values together, and we summarize it down, really we want to make it easy for people to do themselves some good. And that was their founding principle. That was their founding thought at the start. Make it easy to put some good stuff inside you. Make it easy to do yourself some good. And that feels as relevant today as it was 20 years ago, especially when you then link it with this overarching thing of leaving things better than we found them. And I will come on and touch on this a little bit more later. This is so important in today's world that you consider the impacts you're having on people and the environment as well as business. So that's our underlying start point, our vision, our values. And then what's worked for us is we've done things a little differently than maybe they know. We've done things that have felt natural, I suppose, to us. We've been ourselves and our best version of it. And you can have the sort of grand statement and make sure you're talking about responsible business as well, we'll come on to, but you can still have fun. So in the top left of the screen here, you'll find some secret messages at various parts of our packaging. The example here is stop looking at my bottom, on the bottom of one of our bottles. That's one of the favourites we get some feedback or quotes on. There are different messages that we'll sometimes put around our packaging. So that's a nice touch. It's us, it's our tone of voice. It's just us talking as if you were talking to a friend or a family member. In the middle there, you see on the red cushion, the banana phone. So that banana phone is actually the first phone that I think from the profits they made. They bought the phone, the founders, and that was what they used in their first office to answer customer calls on. That's still on display in our office today. We don't use that phone anymore, but that is still there. You'll see it if you come in, it's in reception. And a couple of things on the banana phone really though, is that when you phone up, if you phone the number on the back of one of our bottles in normal times, when we're all in the office, the phone will ring, but it will ring around the office. You could speak to anybody in the office. We want to stay really connected to our consumers and our drinkers. And if they're phoning up just to have a chat, which they often do, or they phone up, they've got a question or a complaint or an idea, we want to hear that and stay connected as you would when you first start your own business. So that's something that we hold very precious to us, that connection stays there. And if I move to the top right on the screen, that connection goes further. This is what we call our wall of love. And it's where people have sent us either things they've made or they've written as a postcard or taken a picture, and they've gone to the trouble of sending that in to us. which is just amazing that people would go out of their way to send something to us as a brand that makes smoothies and juices. And we feel it's really important that we read every one of those, we celebrate them, they go onto our wall, and we send a handwritten response back to everybody that comes through to us as well. That's really important. It takes longer than sending an email or an auto acknowledgement or a copy and paste, but it's authentically us, and I think it makes a difference to the people that receive the handwritten notes. They're not doing it to receive a handwritten note from us, but that's the sort of thing we would do. One of my favourite stories in this space was we were contacted by a couple of parents actually when we changed our kids' smoothies drinks, and they had children who were autistic who loved our old smoothies, and when we changed our packaging, not the drink but just the packaging, it was a real struggle for them to make the connection. So the team went out of the way and created a book called Smoothies New Clothes, and told them through the journey of what happened, and the drink was still the same, it was just the box that had changed and the design. And of course we then got a letter back saying how lovely it was that their children were now enjoying the same drink in a new design. But that little touch goes a long way. And then at the bottom, the two pictures, bottom left and bottom right, something we're really proud of. It's our campaign we call Big Knit. So on the left, at the bottom, you'll see the screen, our smoothies with little woolly hats on. It was an idea of one of the guys way back when that he wanted to do something to help old people, and particularly at that time it was about old people staying warm. We got knitted some hats. They go on the bottles. For every hat we sell, we donate 25p to Age UK. That has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. And if you see the bottom right, we've now got a community of knitters, primarily through Age UK, but also just normal drinkers who knit hats, and they send them into us all year round. And there's pictures there of one of the team. All these bags come into us in our office. They go into a big crate at the front, and when it's full, we then send it off to the factory to go to be stored to go on top of the bottles. And we end up with about 2 million hats that we need to run this campaign. It's a wonderful initiative, started from a really good place, and it's still managed very manually and by people with the goodwill of knitting a hat to donate to that charity. And we go through the process of putting it onto the shelves for people to get the opportunity to buy. It's a lovely campaign born out of someone's idea. The other thing that we've always done is look to make sure we're trying to do things in the right way. So this is the leave things better than we find them. So we always talk about our drinks being 100% natural from fruits and veg. Sometimes we put vitamins in, but we're 100% natural. We look to source ethically in our ingredients, whether that's helping farming standards, or whether it's buying Rainforest Alliance, bananas, whatever it may be. We look to make sure that our ingredients are sourced ethically. Our packaging has been a big focus for us. For the last 15 years, we've had recycled plastic going into our packaging, and the amount of recycle has gone up all the time. All our packaging is 100% recyclable, and we're working towards a world where 100% of our plastic is come from renewable sources. And excitingly, from a Scotland perspective, leading in this space as a deposit return scheme will help sustainable packaging and a circular economy even more. And Scotland are leading on that, and that will be in play potentially from this time next year or summer next year. In terms of resource efficient business, look at the impact we have, and are we making the right choices to manage our carbon footprint, and how can we improve that? How can we make sure we're sourcing sustainably, we're producing effectively, we're transporting goods the right way? And from the very start, we've shared the proceeds. So we give 10% of our profits to charity, and we've set up an innocent charity foundation, and that's aimed at trying to stem global hunger, be that helping initiatives in the UK or across the globe. So really proud of all the things that we've been doing from the start. Alongside that, we've expanded our product range to help us grow. So we started back in 1999 with a range of smoothies, and one of the first recipes there, strawberry and banana smoothie, is still our top seller today. Incredibly successful. But for the first 10 years, we were a smoothie company that focused on smoothies in West London, then in London, then in the UK. About 10 years ago, we started to move into orange juice, apple juice, and brought the bottles back to life. And in the last 5 or 6 years, we've extended our range in different spaces. We've created new types of drinks that have got energy benefits with vitamins in, things like that to help your immune system. We've moved to things like coconut water. We've developed refreshment drinks that are a mix of fruit and sparkling water. So we've expanded our range to help us grow over that time, but it all still pins back to that core smoothie range that we've expanded from. And that's been a recipe for success here in the UK. And it's also helped us grow internationally as well. So again, we started as a company that was UK only, and an office in Dublin as well. Then we started to export to Europe. So still primarily an office in London, but we exported to Northern Europe. From 2010, we started to establish offices. So we had them in Paris, Amsterdam, Salzburg, and now we've got offices in Spain, Italy, Scandinavia, abroad there. And then we're now 2020 looking to Asia, and last year we entered markets in China and Japan, with all the challenges that entering a market in a pandemic brings. So really exciting times. So we've grown through our portfolio, and that's enabled us with our brand credentials and our portfolio expanding to grow across Europe and now into Asia as well. So things are pretty positive. It's a good story. But why do we need to keep to evolve? Well, as we've grown, the world has become more complex as well. It's not too hard to find these types of headlines in the news at the moment, be it on climate change and the impact it may have on food supply, be it on the coronavirus pandemic and how that's changing the economy, be it on global hunger, diversity, inclusion. Some of these things were around in 1999, but you would have had to search quite hard to find the headlines. I can find these headlines in seconds now, and we all see them on the news every day. So the world's changing. We need to keep evolving to keep relevant. And because the world's changing, people are demanding more from the businesses they buy from. So over the last 20 years, there'll be some great certifications that we've certainly adopted. Our Rainforest Alliance bananas, our fair trade coconut water in recent times. But there are some wonderful associations there in terms of the quality of the product or how you're sourcing that. And they're still really, really valuable today. But people are demanding more than just innocent source Rainforest Alliance bananas. They want to do the next step on. And what BCorp does is gives us a certificate that says this is a good all-round company. It's doing things the right way, it's sourcing responsibly, it's looking after people and the planet as well as the profit. And that's why it became a natural next step for us to take our values, our mission, our purpose, and everything we've done in those first 20 years. And in 2018, we were really proud to be certified as BCorp. And it's quite a challenging assessment that you have to go through. It looks at all aspects of your business, but it's something that really encapsulates where we've been, but it also gives us the right next step as to how to build and improve our business as well. And that's really important for us. So what is a BCorp? Essentially, as Liz said at the start, it's businesses acting as a force for good. And it's trying to balance the people, the planet, and profit. It's certainly not saying you shouldn't make a profit as a business and just focus on doing the right thing for the planet. I think all businesses need to make a profit to be sustainable for the long term. So it has to balance the profit part and deliver that, but it's not all about profit at any cost. These businesses in BCorp will also make sure that they are managing the impact they have on society and the environment. And that's really, that balance is really important as you make decisions in the day-to-day. It can guide you into different directions, and it's a good steer as you go forward. It's also not about being a competitive advantage. So we're not trying to be a BCorp here to then steal a march on our competitors and gain extra market share. It's actually the opposite. It's about sharing best practice, it's sharing good ideas. In areas you're good, show what you've done so others can learn. In areas that you're not so good, what are others doing so you can catch up and do things differently as well to make improvements. And I think that's a really important point around BCorp and certification, that it's not an advantage trying to gain from a marketing aspect. It's a way of doing business that is shared for good. There are lots of brands now operating in this space, more and more all the time coming in. So even since this slide last week. It was in the news that Brewdog have become a B Corp. So that in the media last week. There are some massive brands on here, companies like Danone, and there are some smaller brands on here that may be more local to 1 or 2 countries. But what you're seeing is this movement is growing. So there's now over 2,500 companies signed up to this, and this movement is growing all the time. Why do we like being a B Corp? There are 3 real reasons that we always talk about in terms of value that we think we take from this. The first is to show that businesses can make money and be a force for good. So I talked before about the fact that it's not about and or on profit. We are part of a movement that hopefully inspires other businesses to put people and planet in their thinking, but not at the expense of profit. So it's both can happen. And that's really important. It's a sustainable business that does things the right way. Also, about putting a focus on doing business the right way, it helps give us a framework to help everyone innocent make the right choices. So in the past, we may have made choices that we thought were right, but this now gives us a framework and a lens that we could look at and say, is that the right thing to do? Are others doing it better than us? And it's a sense check of where are we, a good benchmark, and it helps us to say, let's stay on track. It's a constant focus to the right choices. And finally, it's about proving that it's all very well saying you do these things, but this is a proof point that says we actually do it. It's not we don't say it as a marketing angle and put it on our packs, but really we're not doing anything in the background. This is a certification that holds us to account to do the things that we say we're going to do. And it will check into those every 2 or 3 years, will be re-audited, and it will say we're getting better or worse and give us areas for improvement and areas that we're doing well at. And that's really important. It holds us to account very publicly so that we can understand what we're doing and how we can improve. So three big reasons of why we're there. And I guess how we measure our impacts across 5 areas. And again, we were doing some of this before, but what B Corp has brought is a framework for us to really use in our everyday guidance forward. So it talks about governance, how we're running our business in the right way, the sense checks, etc., etc. It talks about our people, create an inclusive environment for our people, making sure they're well, safe at work. It talks about our communities, both our local communities, but also wider through charitable giving, through the Innocent Foundation, profits charity, make sure we understand our impact there. It will talk about the environment, our commitment to protecting it, whether it's building our, improving our manufacturing processes to reduce our carbon footprint, or farming responsibly, how are we managing that? And the final one it talks about is treating our customers fairly. So whether that is they phone up for a chat with us about one of our products, or they've got a complaint, or they've got a question, making sure we treat people in the right way, in line with our values. So that's a framework that it gives us to how to measure this. And a couple of examples against each of those that I'd share. The first one is using it as a B Corp. How has it helped us improve? Well, in terms of governance, we have now an updated business code of conduct. So first off, we've taken some guidance of what should be in here, which areas we should be giving clarity on, to how we run our brand, how we run our business. And secondly, we've made sure that this has been shared with all the relevant people in the business, so they can all see what they should be doing and help them make decisions in the right direction when they're not quite sure. So that's a big step forward. It's a small thing, but a big step forward for us. One that I'm really proud of that we've achieved is around our people is a new parental leave policy. So as of January last year, inspired by the B Corp assessment, we introduced a parental leave policy, which meant that whether you're a mum, dad, it was an adoption or a surrogacy, you get the same rights to parental leave. And it's been great to see how that's been taken up by lots of the team, the experiences they've had, the experiences they've all shared them when they've returned to work, and how they found that and any struggles. And we're making ourselves a more inclusive workplace as on the back of that. We talk as well about giving back to our communities, and one thing that we do is volunteering. So before we certified as a B Corp, actually, we used to give everybody a day to volunteer, and they could do what they wish there, volunteer with any local initiative they're particularly passionate about, do it on your own, do it as part of a team. It was down to them. But take up of it was probably only about 25% of people. What we've seen since going through the certification and living as part of a B Corp for a while now is that last year, through the pandemic, we ended up with about 77% of people volunteering. And it's everything you see here from bottom left, the team in London making meals for homeless people. You've got a couple of teams over in Vienna and Madrid doing a litter pickup. And you've got people as well planting, landscaping to encourage pollinators. So there's loads of different things that the teams do to give something back. And they really value that opportunity to take a day and just not work for Innocent, but work for the community. It's something the teams really engage with. The other thing that we've done is created an office promise. So this is to make sure that the offices that we operate at a sort of a gold standard blueprint that we can take from the certification that helps our offices be right for our people, right for our community, and right for the environment. And we apply those now consistently in all our offices, new and existing, all across Europe, rather than initiatives that were happening in one place or another. And again, it's a really good mirror to hold up to ourselves to say, are we doing everything that we possibly can to create the right environment for our people? And finally, it comes back to the point that this can also be a great way to drive business. And we're seeing retailers switch on to this more and more. So a couple of snapshots of websites from Ocado and Waitrose. Ocado is from only a few weeks ago, Waitrose just before Christmas. And what they do is they've created B Corp shops on their website. And it brings all the businesses together that are certified a B Corp. And it's a way for you to find them there. So if you are a shopper that wants us to look at the B Corp brands, shop from their ranges, and make a choice positively in their favour, then the retailer is starting to acknowledge that and build a platform for people to find that really easily. So it shows how this is building momentum. I think it's an exciting next step that this will go through naturally. Everyone, though, has to think like this in the business. You can't have half the business doing one thing, half not really engaged. You have to all pull together. And we're only as good as the people we've got working with us in terms of the success we'll have. So a couple of things that we've done, and one is very simple, which is this 2 extra seats at the table. It's a really simple initiative that in our meeting rooms, when we could have a meeting in a meeting room face to face, we put 2 extra chairs in each meeting room, one on the back to environment and one said society. And what we were really saying was when you're in those meeting rooms where decisions are normally made, make sure you consider the environment and society alongside the other business measures that you'll undoubtedly be talking about. And it's a really, really simple step, but it's really effective in keeping things front of mind for everybody. And then the second thing is the sort of logos you see towards the right of the screen: protector, ambassador, activator, agitator. Everyone in the business will be given one of these roles to play, and it'll be on their objective for the year. So if you're protecting, you're just making sure that you are guarding us being a responsible business, not sacrificing one element for another. You're guarding all 3: people, planet, profit. An ambassador will go and talk about this and share the best practice and understand where we can do better. An activator will be delivering one of our initiatives that we put in play. And an agitator is a really important role that says, could we do this better? Could we go faster? I know we plan to do this, but there's a different way. And all of those roles come together alongside the 2 extra seats at the table, and it means we all think like a B Corp and keep it very much front of mind. I'd leave my last couple of slides are some things that we're really proud of. This is a picture of a new factory that we're building at the port of Rotterdam over in Holland, and it's going to be one of the world's most sustainable blending and bottling sites. We are building this with a plan to be, it should be carbon neutral as a facility. And the way we do that is we talk about reducing the energy use. So everything going in there, we're looking at how we can optimize the energy consumption of every single component. We're looking then at how we can reuse energy. So things like heat that can be lost energy through part of a process. How do we capture that, put it back through the system and generate energy from that again? And then when we do need to put energy in, we're talking about that being the most renewable it can be. So we've got wind, we've got solar, you should expect. Where we need to buy from the grid, we're buying renewable energy on top of that. So we are here looking at a carbon neutral production facility. And it's a great example of us putting all aspects of us doing business the right way together. If you wanted to build a factory for pure profit and to optimize your lowest cost, you wouldn't build this factory. But this is a factory for the long run. And aligned to being a B Corp, we're not talking about this being a competitive advantage. If technologies we create here can be shared and inspire someone else, we'd love to share that with anybody, so they can see what we've done, what the impact's been, and if they can use it, and it helps the planet, all the better. So really proud of that, and that should be up and running by the end of this year. So an exciting moment for us. And I guess to link my last slide, I suppose, right back to the start, we talked about we were the little guy back in 1999. And one thing we try and think about is remaining little. We know we're a company that makes little drinks. We've always had big dreams, and we still do. So whether those big dreams are for us to grow and expand into different countries and continents, whether it's about us continuing to develop our product range and making our products more nutritious and more attractive to drinkers, or whether it's about the things that we can do to help the planet and help the wider people across that world have a better life in whatever way we can, we keep that very much in our minds, and we dream big. We know we're little drinks, but it's a nice philosophy for us to hold to, and it's a nice ambition and drive for us all to get up to every day and try and make things just that little bit better than we find them. So that was it from me. Hopefully you've taken from that presentation a little bit about how we started Innocent and how proud we are to be a B Corp, and you hear the sort of passion coming through in my delivery of it and the slides you've seen there. And I'll end then and hand over to Liz for any questions.
Thank you very much, Graeme. That was really great. I mean, from somebody who's like, I'm fascinated by business, so I'm always interested in the business story and how business has grown. But what's really interesting is that it's really inspiring to see that at the very core of what you're doing is this force for good. And I was really interested in one of your comments that you mentioned that you do this not for a competitive advantage, but because it's the right thing to do. That, that's really challenging, because in many ways all of us have this view that we want to do the right thing, but because it's good for our brand and because it connects us to our customers. So I'm really interested that this is really core to your business, and it's not just something that you're doing to please your customers. And interestingly, particularly through this recovery process or the pandemic, we find businesses really want to do the right thing. And most businesses are there to make a profit, but it's not a profit at any cost. They want to be responsible. But I think the worry as we're coming out of this pandemic is, the cost, the resource, the time it takes to do these things. So it's not that people don't want to, but with the level of debt and all the other things that they're dealing with, it must be a concern that how can they manage it all? What's your advice on how to get started, and how much time and cost does it really take to embed these values as core to your business?
I think it's a great question, and Innocent, it's been fortunate that it was in that very first starting point from the founders there, in the DNA right from the start, because where it helps having it grounded there right at the start is that you're not making decisions based on 1 year or even 2 years. You're based on a multi-year horizon, and you're grounded in, if you do the right thing for the drinker, in our case the consumer, the unshakable belief we've got is the rewards will come. It doesn't mean it's always easy. Some of the decisions are really hard. We face intense competitive pressure, and without that real clear guiding light, it would be very easy for us to go off-piste on this. So I think the key thing that we always think about is making sure that we take the right decision for the drinker and the consumer. And we try and keep a multi-year horizon always there, never look at the short term. Now, we know as well that we've got to a size of business where we can do that. We've had moments though in the past where it's been really, really tricky, and we need to make the right turn and get the right bit of luck to go with you to be successful. But putting the drinker at the heart of everything has been the key driver. It's not always the cheapest solution, but if you get it right and you consistently get it right, you need to hope that the drinker, in our case, or the consumer, will see you as worth paying that little bit more for.
Yeah, no, it's just getting started and just as you say, getting on the road. Interestingly, I just saw in the Q&A bit of a follow-up to that question that I've just asked, that having had that sense of purpose, how have you seen this change in your staff as a result of this kind of purpose-led business?
I think that what it's done for us is it's given everybody a bit more of a clear framework to understand all the different parts that we do and bring it together under one clear direction. So what used to happen was we'd have a sustainability agenda, we would have a nutrition agenda, we'd have the sourcing team looking at things, but sometimes the team in the business found it difficult to connect all those things together and see progress being made and understand where we were going. What BCorp has done for us has galvanized the team behind that certification. You can see it all come together in one place, and we can see clearly where we can improve as well. And teams normally thrive on where they can see they're working really well, and also where they can see areas for improvement. And calling out those two areas has made a huge difference. And one of the best examples in there is that volunteering. It's really important that we want people to give back to the community. They couldn't see how that was make a difference to the community or to anything we did. Now they can, and we've gone from 25% of people doing it to 77% of people. We know we want it to be 100, but it's a massive move forward in only a couple of years.
No, and so thank you for that. That was a question from John Beaton. I think it's Horilik. I hope I've said your name correctly. Another question from Anna McDonald, and I kind of noticed the same thing. I saw that you had your wall of love. We, at the chamber, we have something similar called the jar of joy, where when something funny or it's warm happens, we write it and put it in a jar, and then once a year we kind of open some bottles of wine. Well, we used to when we could get together. We pull out to the jar of joy, and everyone falls around laughing because it just reminds us of these funny things. And so Anna's saying, what are the key considerations for companies looking to bring playfulness and fun back into the purpose space?
I think it's a really good question, because being purposeful doesn't have to be dull or boring or serious all the time. You can have a lot of fun with it as well, and you can be really playful in that space. I think the key is being authentically you. So I talked about one of the values that I really liked was the natural value of innocent and be yourself. And I think where it works is if you are authentically you and you're authentically yourself, the fun normally comes more naturally, and it works for you in a way that is right, as opposed to trying to copy someone else's style or forcing it in a particular way. So I love the idea of the jar of joy. It's just got those little moments of happiness that sometimes you need reminding of, and they can be incredibly uplifting. And those small touches can make a massive difference. There's loads of things that we do at Innocent to make these things come to life. But one of the most powerful things we ever did when we could sit together in the office was we bring ice creams round on a hot day and give everyone an ice cream. Those little touches can be disproportionately important in engaging the teams, just making the business move forward. So be authentically you, bring the fun in the way that fits you, that fits your company, that fits your brand. Don't copy someone else, but be yourselves, but do have fun, because it makes everything else easier from there.
Brilliant, thank you. And just see another question in the Q&A. Oh, we've got some difficult names today. Paul, I hope I'm saying your name right. Paul Skagatic, I'm so sorry. Asked the question that with the brands like Brewdog and Innocent, what sort of new brands do you think we might see launched to help? It says Edinburgh and Scotland, but I imagine the world come out of the pandemic. Difficult question, but really interesting to think about what's coming next.
I think there's loads happened in the craft beer space with the guys like Brewdog taking it on, but there's a load of brands in there which have really brought such vibrancy and interest. And I think what you were seeing before the pandemic, and it will only accelerate, is a lot of smaller brands coming through that have an element of purpose to them as well, in whatever way, shape, form that means, and that stand for something and are not afraid to stand behind that as a brand. I think we'll see more and more of those. So I think ultimately more brands, it'd be more fragmented in many categories. And I think that brings great innovation. It brings excitement. It makes the big brands, on the toes. And that competitive nature is normally really good for a consumer. The other thing I think will change a bit though is how people change their behavior post the pandemic. So we're all keen to see, do we all go back to work the same way? Will we all be in the office 5 days a week? How will that change? How will consumption of food and drink change? How will the way you interact with brands change? Thinking about all those things opens up a lot of new opportunities, new activities that be really interesting to see what the world looks like in 1, 2, 3 years' time. Some things will stay as they were, but many things that make the way we live our lives will be tweaked slightly. And that can be a good thing as well as as we can see as a negative. It can be a real opportunity that could start there. So, we're seeing lots of things in terms of direct to consumer deliveries. We're seeing more people shopping online. We'll see more people eating in home, drinking in home, but how will they socialize? I think it opens up so many different avenues for the future. It'll be fascinating to see the next few years. And who knows where the trends will go, but it's about being quick to follow them, I suppose.
Yeah, we've certainly seen lots of innovation coming through. Oh, I think that we might have another question here. If being a force for good is not currently at the heart and a key purpose of business, or maybe most businesses, how could a business look to shift the mindset and behaviour of staff, as well as shift the brand perception to have a more positive impact? It's a very good question.
I think that's a really good question, because there can be lots of times where there's positive intent, but it's difficult to know how to move quickly. I think it's about there's two things for me. One is establishing a vision of where you want to be. And that vision may be 10, 20 years away. It could be 2 years away, but it's about establishing a vision of an end game of where you want to be, first and foremost. But then secondly, it's showing the small steps to get there, because the vision itself can be daunting. Some people may not buy into it, they can't believe it. But if you can break it down into a few small steps and it starts small, beat that target, and then move to the next one, and then the next one, and the next one, you naturally start to build momentum in the team, in the business. People think it starts to become achievable. And once you've got that groundswell of momentum, you then get ideas from the teams, from a business, about what you can do, how you can go further. I think it's about starting is the main thing. It won't be perfect. Some stuff will go wrong, but it's an iterative process, and you're better to start and evolve as you go than wait and try and get everything perfect, because you'll just be delaying, and you could almost delay too long and lose a moment there. So get going, but have a vision and some small steps to get there would be my overarching view.
And I guess that kind of answers, it was a question I was thinking of earlier that I mentioned many years ago when I worked at Deloitte. We had this thing, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So no matter how good your strategy is, if you haven't got the right culture that embraces change and willing to adopt new ways, then that strategy will just get blocked and blocked and blocked as it heads down from the boardroom to the delivery. So I guess that instilling a culture, the right culture in the organization, helps deliver those strategies. So I mean, that just has to be a leadership style.
Absolutely. I think there's ways you can be very transparent with people. So one of the things that we still do at Innocent, or when we're when we can be in the office together in the future, is on a Monday morning we have everyone together and we just share what's happening that week. We share all sorts of things, and stuff that's maybe a secret project to stuff that's just someone's day job they want to give an update on. It's what you would do as a business when you're first starting, but we still try and do that today with a team of 300 people. They're really important steps that we do. The next thing then is we then have to trust the teams to make decisions. So the role of us, the leadership team, is to set the right direction, give people the right pathway forward, and then we have to trust people to make decisions. And you know, sometimes as a leader, I've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable, that someone else will take a decision. They may make a decision that I wouldn't have done, but I don't know everything. They may make it better than I would have done. So it's about that trust that you put in the team. So give them the direction and then allow them the trust and the leeway to move forward. And that culture is amazing when you get the momentum building, because it then sparks new ideas. It sparks creativity. It sparks entrepreneurial thinking. And as long as you keep it in the right direction forward with that clarity at the start, it can be a really powerful thing.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we've got one more question and then probably need to bring Ewan in. It's an anonymous question. How hard is it to make sure that your supply chain is ethical and sustainable? And do you have any tips for other companies? It's a good question.
I think that's a really good question, because it can be difficult to understand all the traceability through a supply chain. So we're fortunate that we have a team that go out and visit all our suppliers, and we audit and work with specific partners that give us the best visibility of that. We can work really closely against a set of standards. And we've got a scale, and one of the things that we have got that helps us in this world is, we have a partnership with Coca-Cola, who can help us with supply chain standards as well. So we can work together to make sure we're using the best standards there. The thing that we probably found is choosing our supply partners on a broad criteria, not just on, say, price, has been the most valuable aspect of it, because then we've got trusted partners that we don't chop and change every year, but we work with over multi-year. And that's proven to be the most successful way forward for that. It is a hard, a lot of effort to go into it, but the returns come from the effort in.
No, I mean, and I think that's the challenge. And again, as we're all going into net zero carbon, it's making sure that, and even, I mean, Edinburgh's got an ambition to be a living wage city. So we all have to sign up to passing that through our supply chain and making sure that we support each other in that. I think businesses have been less trusted in the past. I think there was a couple of years ago, I remember being at a lunch where it was suggested that business leaders were second bottom to politicians on being the least trusted leaders. And I think there has been a very big turnaround in recent years about being purpose-led, responsible businesses, and whether that's for competitive advantage, or whether it's absolutely core. In many ways, does it really matter? I think it's important, as you say, that you get started and that we actually get on the journey.
Yeah.
Actually, one last. I think there's another question just being posted. Let's see if we can fit in one last question before I bring in anonymous question here. How have you found managing your teams remotely? Do you have any tips on how best to keep up motivation, momentum, and communication?
Well, that's a great question. If anyone's got tips on that, then send them through as well. This is actually, it's like unprecedented times, isn't it? Tough actually at the start. If I'm honest with you, a year ago, I really wasn't that good at video conference at all. So be it Teams, Zoom, any other brand of video conference available, I had barely used them. And now it seems all I do all day is sit on them. I think one thing we've tried to do is how do we create moments to connect the team together? So to recreate the sort of informal moments they would just naturally have in the office. So a couple of examples. One of the teams does a radio show once a week where guests can come in and they're all almost they're interviewed as if they're guests on a radio show, and they play some music and they have quizzes and the games, and they just keep morale up that way. We've also made sure we do online events. So, whether it be the teams get some food together or bake off together, and then they do it all virtually to keep that sort of energy up is important. What we've learned is the time in front of a screen feels more intense than the time in the office. So we've kept meetings shorter. We've made sure that we facilitate the meetings better. So bring people in, because some people are naturally more quiet. So bringing people into the conversation, they don't feel like they're left out. But also we understand that if people are at home, then they've got all different stresses. It could be the kids are running around, it could be they're feeling quite lonely, it could be they're feeling a bit down. So we're giving people space as well for whatever way to flexibly work to make it work for them the best. And we give everyone sort of latitude to say, we can't say it's a 9-to-5 job, we can't tell you what to do, but we can give you permission to work flexibly that suits you in whatever situation you're working in to get the best out of the current environment. So a combination of things, but it's tough, and we're still learning every day about how we can improve. So suggestions definitely welcome.
And I think it's that tolerance and relaxation is so funny. I can be on calls now. We're very, very senior. I think, I don't mind naming names, the principal of the University of Edinburgh, he's sitting on a Zoom call and he's looking like Bloomfeld. He's got this giant ginger cat that he's stroking. And meanwhile, other people have got kids coming in and asking for things. And none of us bat an eyelid anymore. I mean, it's just perfectly normal and acceptable that people have lives that they've got to juggle. So I think that tolerance and relaxation certainly, and it's amusing I always think it's really looking through the keyhole to see what people's homes are like.
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? You get an insight, and I completely agree with you. You've become normal to like the kids come really through. For this, my kids have been sent out of the house for this. It's one of the few moments where they have, but they've been kicked out down to an important meeting.
Right, well, before we run out of time, I'd like to bring Ewan Aitken in. Anyway, Ewan's about to say the vote of thanks, but can I say my thank you to you, Graeme? That's been absolutely fascinating. I feel like I could chat to you for ages. If I can introduce Ewan Aitken. Ewan has been on our council for quite a number of years. He's chaired our Inspiring Communities group, which is a group that he started to connect the third sector and businesses in meaningful partnerships. And he's been a real driving force with that. Ewan has also driven us to lead on the the Edinburgh Can Be project, which I hope he's going to give us a few words on, and then round off with the vote of thanks for Graeme. Thank you very much, Ewan.
No, thank you, and thank you also, Graeme, for an excellent presentation. In terms of kind of managing things, of course, it was helpful I had my camera off because I got a delivery from a well-known distribution company halfway through and I didn't nip up and get it. So that could also be a bit embarrassing when you happen to do everything at home. What was fantastic to hear was about the focus in values and culture. I absolutely believe that the reason that your organisation has grown from 3 guys at a festival to an international company in 20 years, which is pretty good going, is because you've been focused on your values and culture. The systems are important. The people and values are what make it work, because that's when you make good decisions, as you absolutely said. That idea of having a clear framework, because then you build the trust for folk to make the decisions themselves, so they feel like they're in charge of their own destiny. And that kind of, that builds up that speed. But also the other word you used, which I thought was really important, was authenticity. Be who you are and be the change you want to be, as Gandhi is alleged to have said, and I think it's true. You live it. You don't just talk about it, you live it. The values are not laminated on the wall, they're in every decision. And the authenticity of the decisions lie in who you are, not just in a spreadsheet or a supply chain decision. It really is important. And then what you've done is you've built community, and where people want to connect and belong. And we want that even more in this present day and age, and you've managed to find a way of doing that in the context of business, rather than sometimes the assumption is, well, business decisions are sometimes separated from the things we want as human beings, whereas in fact they are how we are as human beings, and we can bring our whole self to that space. And you've articulated that really, 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 really well. And I thought it was really interesting. You said, make it easy to do some good. You didn't make it complicated. You didn't make it a huge, big challenge. You said, We can do this simply. And you're doing that right across the board. And that's been fantastic here. What's really interesting also is your two things, the environment and society. Edinburgh, you have that Scottish connection you described. Edinburgh is one of the richest cities in Britain, but also 21% of children in Edinburgh live in poverty, despite the fact that 70% of those children live in a family with somebody who is working. That's a shocking statistic. What's more shocking is that hasn't changed for 10 years. And sadly, post-COVID is liable to get worse. We are one of the greenest cities in the country. 46% of the area of Edinburgh is green land. It's quite extraordinary. But we also have 3 of the 5 most polluted streets in Scotland. So there's some huge challenges that we need to deal with in this city to make it the one we want to make it. And also, as the capital of Scotland, to lead our nation in achieving the sustainable development goals. And that's what the Can-Be movement is about, and it's grown out of the BCorp movement. How do you bring together the sum of the parts? You've got all these folk on that slide, and there's loads of other people who are also doing things. How do you bring it together so that folk can see that their small action has a big impact? And that's what I think is really, really important. It was interesting you said that, you know, what the BCorp did was drew together all the disparate things that were all part of the same thing, but actually disconnected into one space. And that's what we want to do in Can-Be, in Edinburgh Can-Be. We don't want to give people more things to do, but to do more with what we already do, and to be explicit about it and say, so this is what we do in our carbon footprint, and this is what we do in this, and you pull it all together and say, actually, as a city, we're doing great things, and we could do even more, because that fires people up. And that's what Can-Be is about. It's bringing together business, the third sector, the public sector, universities, all the places where our citizens work and live out a lot of their sense of purpose, and make a sense of all the small contributions into the sum of the parts, and grow it in the way that you have grown it. And it's an exciting time. It's a challenging time, but an exciting time to be part of that. And it's great that the Chamber has said, we've got a task that's beyond just business, to show civic leadership. And